Welcome back to the Friction Podcast. This is episode 2. We have a special guest with us, Dr. Tanya David. I am your producer / co-host, Derron Flood. And I have my lovely co-host with me. Real quick, if you guys could like, subscribe, and comment on all the things, all the platforms as well, we would really appreciate it. The reception for the last episode was amazing. I'm gonna leave it over to pass it to my.
I got you. All right. So yeah, again, this is Zyah like fire. I'm here to help make sure everybody stays on point. That's my job. And I'm going to pass it on over to William.
Okay. So I'm not going to catch it because I got stuff in my hand, but what's up, y'all? Welcome back. I'm Will, kind of like your phone bill. I'm excited that you guys are tuning back into our podcast. We like the review, the comments and stuff from the first episode.
Absolutely.
Make sure you subscribe, like, comment.
And share.
And share, please. Yes. We're excited that you guys are back. Today's going to be a very, very good show. We have our guest on the show, and I'll pass it back to you so you can go ahead and introduce our guest today.
Yes.
So before we get into like the meat and potatoes of it, you know how we're going to start each and every show by asking people what rubbed you the right way or what rubbed you the wrong way. And Dr. David, you absolutely have to participate in that. So I'm going to start off by saying what rubbed me the right way, and it's the audience, it's the onlookers, and it's also my set mates. Kadeem, Zyah, and Will. It's been great, man. I'm proud, I'm happy, and I'm rubbed the right way because of it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm very thankful for that, and I think that it definitely rubbed me the right way. It rubbed me the wrong way that you try to play me like I didn't share it enough because I hadn't gotten any responses back. So I just want to say thank you to the ones that I did tag in my post and responded. That rubbed me the right way, but it rubbed me the wrong way. How you try to play me on that I wasn't sharing enough and all of that. But anyway, so Doctor, what rubbed you the right way or wrong way? How about that?
Just anything. It doesn't have to be anything like with unsaid or just something at home or even in the classroom.
Well, what rubbed me the wrong way was being asked to be here at 1:30 and to say that it was going to start at 2 o'clock.
Right.
Clearly it's about to be, it's actually 3:21.
Right.
She's embarrassing me.
Yes.
She's embarrassing me.
We were on time, as usual.
We were very on time.
Yes.
Let me say this. I hate to point out the obvious, but we're all black folks on the show. And if you felt rubbed the wrong way by showing up on time to something, then that rubs him the wrong way. Because you should have known, if he said show up at 2 o'clock, show up around 2:30-ish.
No.
So it was probably but we appreciate you being here on time.
Yeah, acceptable.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being here on
Absolutely.
time.
Wrong.
Yeah, so I don't have anything, honestly, I don't have anything that rubbed me the right way. However, Common, I share what you say about rubbing you the wrong way about subscribers. So make sure if you follow me and I've sent this video to you, make sure you guys subscribe
please.
Because I want to be on the show. I want to stay on the show. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way this week because you was kind of pushy with the make sure your friends are commenting, make sure your friends are subscribed, make sure.
Yeah, he was in. We have a group chat and he was going on about how many people he walk up on the street and get to subscribe and all of that. So
barbershop videos.
Anyway.
Yeah, but we're all doing our part to make this podcast a good thing. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But let's go ahead and get started on a real topic today,
yes.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. So I want to give a shout out to Just a Media Group and our cameraman, Kadeem. He's been amazing for all the things that he did. And he's shaking his head at me right now.
Because it's just another podcast media group.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Just another media company. Just another media company. Thank you. Give thanks.
Just another media company. We're going to say that one more time.
Just another media company.
Mm-hmm. All right, so without further ado, I am going to introduce Dr. David. Me and her got acquainted through, I'm a personal trainer and I own a gym, through a client, and she poached me from a client and I trained her. I'm a personal trainer. I'm her personal trainer. So I told her about the topic that we were going to talk about, and she was interested, and I'm very happy and honored for her to be here. In essence, we have a whole scientist
absolutely
on board, and
which is nice.
I am very proud and honored to have you on board again.
Yes,
so
can we get a round of applause?
Give her a round of applause.
Derron, I have to say, everything he just read, I probably understood about 5 words.
5 words.
Me too. I was like,
But I got the idea that you're pretty smart. And we appreciate you being here. We do.
I say more hardworking.
More hardworking.
okay.
More hardworking.
I mean, that was a lot. And for HBCU.
Yes.
We appreciate that.
Give
we need
thanks.
that.
So I have a question to start out. What made you be what you are today?
Can you clarify? Because there's so many different ways I could go with that
I mean, not really. I want to know where the inspiration came from. Tell me why you decided that you wanted to be
chemist.
a professor.
The professor came as whichever way God was leading me at the time is the best way to say that, because there was so many different ways that I wanted to go, and still have in my mind that, oh my gosh, these are different things that I want to do. It's just an opportunity that presented itself. But what started me off on my journey was essentially my mother. I always used to dabble in hair and products for your skin, for your hair, face, all of that stuff. And so I started that when I was about 5 and continued. And my mother was like, I think you need, because I said I wanted to do hair and wanted to be a cosmetologist. But she was like, I think you need to actually be a chemist. You're curious. You want to know why something is the way it is. Not just, oh, this is what it is. No, but exactly why. Why is it that way? So she was like, I think you need to be a chemist. So the whole idea when I first came to college, when I came here to Virginia and Norfolk State, I was actually going to major in chemistry. The idea was to go on to medical school to be a dermatologist, and then start making my own hair and skin products. Open up my own beauty salon. Wanted to get into a little massage therapy as well. All of that shebang. That quickly changed as I was going through chemistry and realized that, oh, this was a lot more than what I thought it was going to be. And then I realized, I was like, as much as I still, and up to today, I still love hair. I still love the natural way of your hair, your skin, just doing things to better yourself in a more natural way. I actually found helping the environment and helping people in health-wise more important. So then I went on to just do my degree in chemistry. But then once again, life happens. I end up having my son as a junior in college, and that kind of put a monkey wrench in me going in one direction. And essentially, I end up having to change directions. And I ended up going into material science when I graduated, because I didn't really have much opportunities. I couldn't really leave the state with my child. Okay. And so a lot of the things that I wanted to do, just couldn't do.
So real quick, when you say there's different directions and there's other things that you could have did, what did you have in mind for yourself? Because you're super accomplished now, and I mean, you're like a one of one, but you say that there's different routes and different things that you could have done. What else specifically?
And I tell my son this all the time. Had I not gotten pregnant with him, like right before I got pregnant, literally, I had just looked up UCLA's pharmacology program, because I was going to major in pharmacology with a concentration in virology.
Pharmacology is what?
Right. I was about to say.
Sorry.
I know what.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Right.
No dumb questions.
Pharmacology is the study of pharmaceutical drugs, essentially.
Okay.
So
anything that gives you any type of medical stuff that deals with drugs.
Okay.
So,
I want to jump in real quick, because I know you mentioned something about your mom having this plan for you. Last week's episode, we talked about, different type of parenting.
it was
No, it wasn't her mom's plan. That's not what she said.
Okay.
You're not listening.
my mother she just realized
That you have a passion for it?
right. She
Okay.
realized that I had such a passion for mixing stuff. Like I used to mix everything
Oh, so that
all
led you to
the
chemistry.
time.
Okay.
So then
Yeah, so her mom was watching her and allowing her.
Okay, well,
Here they go.
listen, we can go back to last week. If you
I mean, we can. No.
Okay. So what is your before we move on, I want to know, because your mom had a passion, she saw that you had a passion for mixing stuff. Is this what she would have imagined for you or dreamt up for you?
honestly, I don't know. My mother. So my mother is one of those that was not. I would consider a traditional parent of her time because my mother is an older parent. She wasn't one of those women that, got married in her 20s and had children. No, my mother had her first child later on in life. My mother spent the first half of her life working and traveling and enjoying
her.
her life.
Very good.
So so for her, she just was happy to encourage me to go in a direction that made me happy.
Mhm.
Okay.
I like that.
My mother went to college later on. It took her many, many years. She finally graduated with her bachelor's when I was in the 4th grade. So by then, my brother was already out of high school by that point in time. And, it was such a great accomplishment to see that my mother never gave up.
Okay.
So I grew up on a campus of a university. So for me, it was already instilled in me that no matter what, I was going to college, what I was going to major in. But then my mother just dropped a nugget in my head and was like, chemistry. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Nice.
I was like, okay.
So it was natural.
It was not.
Right.
I don't know if it was natural. But that's a whole different
Sounds like it.
I don't know if it was natural. That's a whole different conversation. Her mother dropped a nugget. I want to let the audience know that, one, you're from the island.
Mhm.
I'm from Africa. Us foreigners, our parents might not have the gun to our head and say Asia and this, that, and the third, but they will kind of steer you in that direction where they want you to be at.
Let me put a pause on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. Yes. Can we bring
when
her
my
on
mother-
regularly?
When my mother sees this again, I need the record to be set straight before
Okay,
she
good.
chews my head out. My
Don't get her in
mother,
trouble.
Right.
no. My mother is from New York.
Okay.
Born,
And
raised, generations in New York. She ended up in the islands because she went on vacation.
And met somebody there?
And from there, it just turned into
Just
she
my
ended
real
up-
life.
Right. She ended up
That's
just
like
moving down there. Eventually, she got married. My brother was born, and then later on, I came along. So, and my mother just ended up staying. So
Okay.
I had a very different upbringing because my mother was truly stateside, while the rest of my father and his family were from the islands, truly from the islands. So on my father's side, like as far as parenting on my father's side, so my mother and my father were never married. So very separate, but my father was very present.
Okay.
There was never a time when my father was just there always. So he told my sisters and I there was no option for us not going to college. Like we had to.
Well, listen, I'm glad you say that. So there's a reason why I wanted to talk about the parents and wanting your kid to be a certain way because of last week's episode. If you want to know more about that, make sure you watch last week's episode.
I like
If you
that.
watch that. But we're gonna move on. But I appreciate you giving that little background about yourself, about your family, your parents. On that situation from last week. You weren't here for the episode, obviously, but I wanted to make sure we got some type of.
But I did watch the episode.
You
so
did.
I know what happened in the episode.
Yes. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you. We've talked about her.
So I'm a big cheerleader and advocate for Black people, specifically in STEM, and you're basically like obviously a leader in the sense where you're a role model to your son, and also you educate tons and tons and tons of Black people, Black kids, to be the next person that's going to be a pharmacist, and because they got to take chemistry, right? So those things are important. So I just want to know specifically, what does it mean to you knowing that you are servicing a misrepresented population of Black people?
Very important. It is very important.
So on a scale of 0 to 10, say 11.
Fine, 11.
Right. Because as we know, and I mean, I remember coming up when I heard about black people, black kids, especially when I was in school, like they majoring in math or, they're proficient at math, like naturally, it was almost like negative in a sense where you're like, man, you a dork. Like, how can you be good at math? And, that stigma kind of carries on into your teenage years. And we just need more of that because at the end of the day, those are the jobs that are really paying.
You know what's crazy? I wish I knew that growing up because just being from Africa, I didn't, when I saw black folks not studying math or going to the science field, I just thought they were being, I don't want to, I
Say
don't,
it.
Say
I-
it, brother.
say it.
I just
Say
thought they were
it.
being lazy and they
Mm.
weren't pushed enough by their parents. And I hate to go back to last week, but I just felt like had they had more of pressure, guidance from their parents, that would produce so much more when it comes to that.
Right.
But it's
Perhaps.
free spirited. Do what you want. And live your life. And I'm here to
He
support
is
whatever
on
you
full
decide to
on
do.
attack mode.
I'm not.
I play chess, not checkers. It's okay.
That prevents that. That prevents her from being. I don't know if yes, I just said that her mother didn't say, "Listen, you got to be you have to go to school, be major in chemistry, and go this route and stuff like that." But her mom
Noticed, her
mind,
mother noticed because her mother was being a mother and she noticed
and dropped
the
nuggets.
attributes of her child and she allowed her child to be exposed to the environments that would allow her daughter
She
to
dropped
grow
nuggets.
based on her natural ability to educate herself. Yes, that's what happened. Right. I love it. It's okay.
Well, let's move on. We're gonna come back to that.
Okay.
I got you. We're gonna come back to that. 'Cause
Right.
I have more to say about that.
It's okay.
But I don't want to spend too much time on that. But let's go ahead.
So Zyah, do you have any questions for her?
I
about
do.
anything professional?
So, okay, so you actually teach so you teach as a professor, right?
I-
What's the youngest age group that you've ever taught?
8th grade.
8th grade. And how was that for you as far as 8th grade? Because 8th grade is pretty important. That's like what typically right before high school,
What
right?
age is that?
What?
Anywhere-
13, 12, 13
Okay,
ish.
I
Okay.
had between the students I had ranged between about, I think the youngest I had was 11 that turned 12,
Mhm.
and then the highest was about 14 going on 15.
Okay. Have you ever wanted to
in
go
8th grade,
younger?
15-year-olds? What were
Yes.
you teaching at? What
Stop.
city?
Don't do that.
I'm not gonna say the school.
Don't do
no.
that. So have you ever wanted to go younger or do you
No.
prefer where you are now?
I prefer college.
Okay. And why?
Oh, teaching the 8th grade. So you have to understand that I was in an underrepresented area and in an area where when you talk about a systematic breakdown
Mm.
of
We'll get into that.
the educational system,
Yes.
We'll get into that.
school is a perfect example of that breakdown. And so the students in there, like they felt like they had no hope.
Mm.
They were coming from very many lower socioeconomic standards and homes.
Mhm.
And so, for them, when you talk about my life going out and robbing a liquor store or beating up somebody for their car or, all of this was just normal life. Like I had so many students that actually had records that many a times I had to sit back and be like, okay, can you please, if you can I see, can you tell me a little bit about this student? What are they being charged with?
Mhm.
So that I could be mentally aware of what type of student I have in my classroom and then now have to how to actively show these students that there could be another way,
Mhm.
even though they are truly living in a horrible situation. Some
Mhm.
students didn't even have lights. I had students who didn't even have places to live.
Mhm.
Truly,
Yeah.
Right.
like
I can relate. I was 14 years old, living practically on my own. So I definitely can relate to like feeling like, okay, at 14, having a job, having changed my birth certificate, by the way, so I could work at McDonald's with an 18-year-old sister who didn't care whether or not I went to school. And well, actually, this was her rule. She was like, just don't get pregnant. Don't get pregnant, go to school, anything else you can do. And so at that age, 9th grade, for me, I felt like I was on my own. So I can relate to like, it's like, I hear what you're saying, lady, but when I go home, I still got these problems.
And that's exactly what they had.
Yes.
And then what they would do, they would come into the classroom with those problems. So then many times I would have students that wouldn't do anything, that would spend the whole class just being completely disruptive on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had some classes where I had some of the smartest students. Like when I look at them, I see the future scientists. I see
all coming from the same environment.
That's dope.
Right. So even though they come from the same environment and they may have some of the same environmental issues, there are some very distinctive differences in how they respond.
Listen, girl,
Shots fired.
If you want me to respond, just say my name.
Say my name, William. It's all good.
Listen, I understand. I understand everything you just said. Did I experience it? No.
And I think that's the difference. Like it was very different for me to be in that environment because is considered one of the worst schools in the area. Many teachers that teach within many of the different 7 cities here in the Hampton Roads area will not go to that specific school. They will quit before they do. So just being in that environment, I was just like, wow, like this is, you cannot possibly imagine if you've never been in that situation. And so then the question is, how do you get through to these students?
Okay.
Right.
I have never been in a situation where in a matter of 6 months, I had 4 students that their parents died.
Wow.
Jesus
In 6
Christ.
months. How do you even comprehend that? Like I was just
It's very
wow.
traumatic.
It is. People. I had one student. His mother was shot. Another one. His father was shot. Another one. His mother just died in her sleep.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
And it was just like.
And imagine how that affects their ability to even process, like that I have to be in this environment where I'm told what I'm supposed to be getting so that I can be successful in life, but I haven't gotten any actual healing. I've gotten no support for the trauma that I'm dealing with prior to being here and just having to be here every day. You want me to show up every day.
So can I say something real quick? Everything you guys said, I understand. And I know we talked this week, and I want to say that I wish I understood. I wish I identify with everything you guys are saying. I didn't go through those situations. My parents were African. They came here. They work hard. We was in an inner city school. I was able to go to an all-white college. I was one of the very few blacks over there. Went to grad school after that. Did all of that. Somehow this week, I want to get back to what's rubbing me the wrong way, because I'm coming back to it. I know we're on this topic, and I feel like this leads into that. What rubbed me the wrong way this week was that the fact that I had no idea of what race, and this is going to be the topic for today,
Right?
What race? When it comes to, I'm sorry, what's the topic?
We'll get into it. We don't want to prematurely give out the topic.
I don't, but I feel like this links into that.
I think it's a good bridge. I think it's a good bridge. Right.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Bridge into it.
Because I don't know what I was taught in high school, what I was taught in college had nothing to do with my history.
Mm-hmm.
Me being African,
right?
Born and raised in Africa, came here, and I was taught just basically this is what America is about.
Mm-hmm.
The whitewash history of America.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I look at it and say, Well, even though I have all these cards stacked against me, like you said, kids' parents are dying. They're in schools that nobody want to teach at. They have all these things against them, and I'm sitting on the sideline saying, "Well, listen, you still could have done better because."
Yeah, but see, the thing is that it's hard to relate to something like that when you don't have that experience, and that's the point of today's topic, essentially.
When you're not taught those things,
right? It's like I don't expect you to have as much empathy, but this is why this topic that we're talking about is really, really important.
Okay.
Because it puts it in perspective for you. It gives you an opportunity to examine it as a chemist, as someone who takes things and says dissects them and breaks it down and says, okay, what is this actually? What are all the elements that bring this together, and what makes it look the way it look and act the way it acts, and what is the reaction and why is it adverse, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean.
Right. So I think it's a really good time to just bring up the topic.
Right.
So today we're going to be talking about critical race theory. It's one of the hot topics in all of politics these last couple of months. Yes. I don't think that I want to give the definition of critical race theory just yet. More so,
can we all give our own insight on this? Because
okay, we'll do it that way.
So
we'll start with diet.
So first, I want to ask you, Flood. First, before we get started, hold up.
Okay.
Why was this so important for you to talk about?
One, because I'm Black, and it potentially could empower Black people. All of the things that we complain about. Race inequality, race inequity, education, our history, where we live, how we function in society, how proud we are. Literally, critical race theory kind of embodies all of the things that, that takes away from our humanity as a Black people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so it's super important that we talk about it because all of the politicians are, and they're purposefully bringing this thing to the forefront. And we need Black people specifically. We need to get on board. So when it's time to vote and things like that, and these topics come up, we can rush to the polls and say, this person is for this particular thing, and we're going to vote in our interest for it. So it's important to me because it could affect everything, literally everything, from my wallet to how I feel about myself to education and everything in between.
Okay.
So you called me and you said, I know what the topic is.
He told you first?
Of course.
I'm upset. Go ahead.
It's okay.
We'll talk about this after the show.
No worries. He called me, you called me, and you were like, got the topic, and I'm like, okay, and I'd never heard of it before. So interestingly enough, we ended with Break or Build, which was unschooling, right?
Right.
And obviously, if you've watched any of our previous episodes, you know that I did unschool my children. Unschooling is, I'm going to, quickly break it down. It's just the opposite of schooling. Like, it's the opposite of sending your children to school and having them educated by the schooling system. Ultimately, it also looks like child-led learning, which is what, although I don't think that's what your mom was doing, I think that she did watch you enough and was like, you know what? I see my daughter. I see what she's about. I see how she's moving, and I can see where I can give her more direction as far as what would benefit her and her goals. Unschooling is, in essence, a way to give children a critical way of looking at the world. And for me, it was about letting them live their lives, giving them an opportunity to have a voice, and then allowing what their interests were to guide me as far as how I educated them. So whatever they were interested in, we dove in. If they were no longer interested in it, we didn't keep digging. I didn't keep trying to push it on them. So it was like, okay, that was on the surface for me as far as critical race theory. But when I break down critical race theory, for me, I think about critical as in like, okay, something serious, something that we're like analyzing this in a very judgmental way, in a very deep, we're going to dive deep into this, okay? Right. And when I think about the word race, I'm thinking, okay, first thing that comes to my mind, is not necessarily our skin tone, but it's more like competition. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like a race is a competition.
Okay.
Okay, right? So if I'm coming to see you race, I'm coming to see you compete. I want to either see, it's first place, second place, third place, and so on and so forth. And then when I think about theory, I think about something that is just kind of examining a system of something. So we're looking at a race. We're examining the system of race. Now, there are obviously different sets of lenses. We all have our own experiences and we have our own views on things. So we're looking at it from a different set of lenses. But the reality is that when you look at something deep, sometimes it's not very pretty. The package is not very pretty. It's not as preserved. And I think that's what I started seeing when I started researching is that people were in an uproar about taking something that has been preserved and saying, well, we don't want to look at this in a very raw way because that's going to make me uncomfortable. And I know why it makes you uncomfortable, but that's my perspective. Okay. How about you? What was your...
Oh, we come to me?
What was your thoughts?
I really thought we was going down the road. Okay, so I got the text message from you guys on Wednesday saying that we need to have a conversation about this week's topic. When I got there, I had no idea of what critical race theory was, honestly. And when you guys threw the topic out there, I had some reference to R. Kelly and all that good stuff like that.
It's inappropriate.
But I'm glad that you sent me a video to watch. And on my way to work on, I think it was Thursday morning, I watched it. And my idea of critical race theory is that, we had the civil rights movements that happened back in the 60s and 70s. After that happened, so the government said, okay, so we're going to set these rules in place and these things in place that is going to be able to solve the race issues.
Inequalities,
yeah. So we're going to go ahead and solve the race inequality and stuff like that. But then when there were programs put in place to help those,
there was resistance to them.
Yeah, So when there were programs put in place for race inequality, the people, white
people,
said,
"Be specific."
Yes.
Well, so the people, the white folks said,
"Thank you, sir."
That listen,
that's not fair.
If you're saying that, for example, let me just go ahead and bring it to current day.
Affirmative
if you're
action.
Saying Black Lives Matter. Affirmative action.
Let's go with that.
But if you're saying Black Lives Matter, are you saying that
white lives don't matter?
Don't matter? So affirmative action and stuff like that were put on the front line, saying that that if you were saying that blacks should be able to go to certain schools and be given certain scholarships and stuff like that, are you saying that whites shouldn't go to the schools, or we should have certain percentage of whites going to the schools and stuff like that? And it's crazy because the Supreme Court actually took those cases and said, we agree with that. That now we're looking at the issues that we're trying to fix racism, and we have affirmative action in place. Now affirmative action might be a bad thing because it's considered something that's racist to us,
right?
White folks. And if you look at racism, I don't think a black person can be racist, honestly, because we don't have the power to control institutionalized racism.
What is racism to you? What does racism mean to you?
I think you just put me in a spot to be aware, but I would say, to me, it's anything that is oppressing our people.
So you think anything oppressing, when you say our people, are you saying black people?
I'm saying black.
Okay. So racism is anything oppressing black people.
Black people.
Okay.
So critical race theory came about when, these scholars came around and said, well, these rules, these laws that have been set in place to help black folks are not helping. Segregation, I think one of the words that pop up to me was colorblind. So let's pretend that we don't see color. And I was watching a reality show, and the lady on there said that she don't see color. If you don't see color, then you don't see racism going on. And critical race theory is there to prove that, for example, in the justice system, driving while black is a problem. Let's say in the entertainment industry, if you have reality shows that have all white cast members or white all white actresses and stuff like that. This is supposed to awake us to make sure, have us know that these things, these rules, these laws that are put in place to help, I guess, deal with
Balance the
racism.
books?
Yeah, balance the books.
Right.
Is not helping at all.
But we don't want to balance the books. Like, you can't balance the books if you don't look at all the receipts.
You don't. Yeah.
Like,
Now,
if you don't look at all the receipts, you can't balance the book. So the problem is, I see in the arguments that some of these parents have about.
Do I agree with all of that? I don't. But I wanted to let you know what critical race theory was for me.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get back to what I agree with and disagree with. So we're gonna
because it sounds like you agree with it.
No. I don't. I was stating. All I did was state what I thought critical race theory was for me.
Got it.
Now, my opinion.
So you're saying it puts a highlight.
Yes.
On racism. Okay.
My actual opinion that I haven't stated yet. We're gonna turn over to the good doctor over here. And once you states what her definition is, we'll come back around and I'll let you know how I feel about it.
Okay.
Because I have a good friction about that.
Okay, boo. Let's do it.
Well, like you all, I wasn't quite sure what critical race theory was. And I even text my sister, who for me is one of the smartest people that I know, smarter than me included. And she always disagrees with that. She really is smarter than I. And she even said, she's like, what is that? So I had to look up the definition, and I found a really good article by CNN. I really like reading CNN articles. And I was like, oh. And I started reading and I was like, but this feels like the system I grew up in the islands. Like, it just put a name to it, but essentially looking at the past and how systemic racism related to what we are going through now, how what has happened before is affecting us even up to today, and looking back on that and then trying to see how to fix these issues, what worked, what didn't work, and reflecting on those. And I grew up on that type of system in the Caribbean. That's the way we were always taught, regardless. So
from your understanding of what critical race theory is, would you feel comfortable? Your son is what grade is he in right now?
He just graduated from high school.
Okay, so let's pretend that he was still in high school or in elementary school. Mm-hmm. Would you feel comfortable with them introducing what they call race consciousness, which is one of the principles of critical race theory, to your child by giving examples, experience, teaching this to say, hey, just so you know, the world looks at you as a Black child.
Well,
how would you feel about that?
I would have been just fine with it because he had that at home.
We
had these real conversations with my son at home, because for a long time, my son only had white friends. Mm-hmm. That's it. Hush.
Does that rub you the wrong way?
That rubs me the wrong way.
Okay.
And you could go ahead with that. But him and his friends, he has 3 of them, 2 of them that he's been friends with since kindergarten. They're all just graduating. Mm-hmm. So they've been friends this entire time. I love the relationship. And then a few more came in throughout elementary school, and then they added one last one. He is African American while they were in high school, so it's a group of them. But his dad and I always told him, you know, as you get older and you start to go out with your friends, we need you to remember that
you still Black.
Are Black. So whatever your friends do, you are not going to have the same consequence. They're going to look at you. And then once my son he wanted to put in locks, I was just like, okay, please understand.
They're going to look at you differently.
You are different, that they are not going to treat you the same. You and your friends, they don't see your color. They see you as just who you are and your personality and the wonderful person you are. And it's a lovely, lovely relationship. Love it. However, when you go out there in the world, they're going to see that you are Black.
I mean, I get that, and I understand, but you know, I watched a video on Instagram months ago, and there was this 2 kid. It was when the I Can't Breathe, George Floyd movement was going on, and there was this little white kid. He looked like he was 2 or 3 years old, and there's this black kid who was about 2 or 3 years old, and they had a video of them hugging each other. It was on Oprah's Instagram page or something like that. And I think the caption said, love is, you grow up knowing what love is, or something like that. Do we want to have our kids growing up knowing that you're different from me and I'm different from you and I'm getting treated differently and you're getting treated differently? Or do we want them to grow up knowing that we are the same? If we introduce critical race theory to high school, elementary school, teaching these kids that, yeah, you were oppressed and we were the oppressor, that might lead to them growing up and staying with that mindset that I'm supposed to be superior and you're supposed to be inferior. That really it bugs me. Yes, go ahead,
William.
Yeah.
So a few things. I don't want to answer your question right yet, but I just want to talk about the opposition because you're kind of leaning towards the opposition. Right now, there's 4 states who completely banned the idea of even introducing the legislation.
Oklahoma is
and
one of
that's
them.
Florida, Arkansas, Idaho, and Oklahoma.
Yes.
So black folks, if you want to have a chance to even navigate culturally your children to public schools, don't live in those states. I mean, Charlemagne already told y'all about Florida. This just adds to that. So that's super important. We're talking about the opposition. Now, to your point about do we want our kids to be raised like that? I say absolutely yes. Because a part of critical race theory, there's an empowerment aspect to it. When we think about history, and I'll ask you guys a question, and just, answer to the best of your ability. Prior to 1970, can you name one famous person of color? Famous. 1970.
Before? Billie Holiday.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know when Diana Ross came around, but I feel like she...
I mean, are we talking about musicians with us?
Just
it's like famous
anything.
people.
Or, just whoever.
Malcolm X.
Okay, cool. So the point is, critical race theory isn't just about black people either. I can't name one Asian American person that's famous prior to 1970. I can't name one Latin American person that was famous in 1970. And everything in between. Like, my history was an elective when we was coming up. It was 1 month, and then when I got to college, it was an elective. And we all are supposed to be proud Americans. Why can I not be empowered the same way when U.S. history is taught?
You can be. I mean, we can teach history from a black perspective, from a white perspective. My concern is that it might divide us even more because I'll be honest with you. I will, my story. So I grew up in Africa, went to a all black school, high school, went to a white college. The more I get to know about African history, African American history, it pushes me away from white folks. And I hate to say this on the podcast, but I'm gonna say this. It really makes me despise white people.
Welcome.
And that creates that. And
welcome.
My idea of what I want. Are you ready to go in? Are you ready to go in?
No. We're not cutting or anything.
But that makes me. And when I'm thinking, I'm like, so what is this? What is society going to be like? As I learn more about my history or our history, does that create a divide between African Americans and white?
I have to interject. I
Go
am
ahead.
so sorry. So I have to ask this question. So you prefer to stay in ignorance?
No, I wouldn't say.
Yes.
I wouldn't say ignorance.
But that's what it is. Like, for you to not know.
He likes the preservatives.
For you to not know. So just like what she said earlier, just because you have knowledge out there is essentially how you react to it, right? Somebody tells you something and your reaction. So understanding the history, even if you look, like when I go back, I go back and I look at a lot of history of African countries about things that happened there and things just completely upset me. And so, and it sometimes makes me reflective, like, man, white people really messed up the whole continent of Africa. Like all these different countries that, had flourishing civilizations, and they just came in and they raked us over the coal. And up to today,
Oh man,
many of the
we can go so
countries-
much into that.
I know, but many of the countries still cannot catch themselves and so impoverished that even over here we can't even think about it. But knowing that knowledge, you don't necessarily have to sit on here and say, "Oh, I hate every white person." Say no, but having that knowledge is empowering, is good. You use that to make sure that you don't go back and repeat history.
What are we doing? Okay, so let's say we are all for critical race theory. No colorblindness. Yes, racism exists. It's systematic. It affects every part of our lives. What is the purpose of critical race theory? What is it
to
gonna do
examine the system?
Is it going to change anything?
Yes.
Yes.
How so?
Because when you have an opportunity to examine something in its rawest form, if you break something down and you say, okay, this is what we are dealing with, this is what it actually is, now we have an opportunity to start figuring out how to balance the books. Unfortunately, to this day, the books are still
Not balanced.
thoroughly unbalanced. And it's because most people don't want to take and look at the receipts in their entirety. It's like, you got receipts crumpled up here, you got receipts stuffed down here. Wait a minute, we're not even gonna look at that because that was just a receipt. We're not looking at it. Why do we have to do that? Children don't see color. Yes, they fucking do.
I have to say this. So
they do.
You said,
not all children.
okay.
But they do.
Okay.
Okay,
So
why is it okay? Why is it an insult to say you black African booty scratcher? That is an insult. Even as a child, being called black.
African Americans, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Yes.
I
know it came from traumatized, raped, beaten Africans from America. I do know it came from that because they were called black and they felt fucked up about it because it was demonized as a bad thing. Period.
Let me say this. So you said this on the first podcast. You said you built a house. There was this analogy.
If there was a house that my family had built and someone had come in and raped and killed all the people that lived on the main house and sent their children down into the basement, and for years they stayed down in the basement until those children realized, wait, this is our shit. And we come upstairs and we realize these motherfuckers are still here in our shit. Okay. We need to heal, first of all. Mm-hmm. We don't need you here while we heal. Y'all need to leave our house, our family's legacy, our house, so we can figure out how to fix this house back up for ourselves.
You actually think that leaving this to African Americans, our people, is going to change anything? Like, we're going to have progression on? You're looking at wait. Hold on.
I need you to.
You know what?
Dr. David, I'm going to let you answer, and then I'm going to follow up behind you. Okay, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Actually, I would like for you to finish your.
I bet. The analogy.
I have rubbed you the wrong way.
You definitely rubbed us.
I'll be honest. Before I was educated on this whole topic, after I got educated on it, I knew I was going to be an outsider on this. I'm going to go ahead and finish up. I still don't know. You saying that, and I wanted you to bring that analogy that you said earlier about, give us our time to heal, all the stuff like that. So we've healed.
We haven't.
No, I'm not. I'm saying,
okay.
I'm hypothetically.
Okay.
So we've healed. What is critical race theory? You saying that, okay, so these things, these laws are put in place are not helping black folks at all. Segregation, and we should stay segregated. Blacks should be treated this way and this, that, and the third. I still don't have a good, you still haven't laid out.
The thing is that critical contrast creates desire. Okay. When you have contrast in your life, friction, you start to figure out a way to not be under such pressure and friction, right? Okay. Diamonds come from pressure, okay? So we can have something beautiful come from something that has been, a lot of pressure has been applied to it. But the bottom line is this. critical race theory is a result of the shit that came from civil rights movement that didn't work, that isn't working. It's a result of the fact that it wasn't working. It's not because we've healed. So you have to think about, even just like, okay, so let's think about it like this. We were enslaved for how many ever years? That's 200, 400, 300, whatever, right? Even after slavery so-called ended, lynching didn't happen until after slavery ended. So we were still being traumatized. No one brought in mental health people to help us figure out what the fuck just happened to us. Right. Where's our language? Where's our culture? Where's our history? Nothing. And then it kept going. And we're still to this day dealing with it. Okay. We are still dealing with it. I have dealt with it. Even within my own immediate family, I was called a white girl growing up in my family because I'm one of the lighter people in my family. Do you know how like fucked up I felt as a kid being called a white girl? Like I fucking hated it. I hated it. And I told Fled, I was like, I used to shut up about it. I used to lay under a lamp so I could be darker because I hated being so light-skinned. So it's levels within us. That's why I'm saying, like, we can't heal while you're still in the same space with us. And it's not about separating. And
it's about separating, but keep going.
I hear you on that, but it's what I'm saying is not about like, I need to be separate from you because you're so fucked up. I'm saying I need to be separate from you because right now I can't deal with the shit that you're trying to bring to me. As a white person, you cannot help me heal. You don't even understand. You can't understand because you were taught to understand the world through a lens of cognitive dissonance. You've created a target.
Color blindness too.
I don't see color.
Right.
Yes, you fucking do. I'm sorry. There's no not seeing color.
I want to hear your opinion on that, Dr. David.
Well, so your point.
I'm trying to break this down.
Okay, so what I'm saying, the bottom line is what I'm saying is for this is you do not have to sit down here and take this information and create a divide. Regardless of whether you think it or not, and because you did not grow up here, you grew up in a predominantly Black environment, right?
Yes.
Your whole area everybody was Black, right? Okay, that's different for you. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in the similar, where the islands, the Virgin Islands, are actually predominantly Black. Once slavery ended and Denmark sold us to the United States, and even in the British, they have the British Virgin Islands, which is still owned by England. You know, we are all still predominantly Black. We do have we consistently always have a reminder of our
blackness,
our environment. Like, how did we get here? So when you say you only had to take history as an elective, history is a requirement. We learn history all the way throughout in the islands, and it doesn't make us necessary. We don't look at white people and be like, oh, we can't stand you. We look at them and be like,
we understand why you are the way you are, which is on the other side.
The system is the way that it is. So this is why in order for us to understand the system and say, okay, now how do we break through this system to help us rise, right? Okay. To break down what was, to make sure that we can get to where we really need to be and where we should be at this point in time, so far coming off of slavery. And then being able to know that knowledge. My great grandmother, so the woman who raised my father, my uncle, and my aunt, she was born a slave. That's not that far off.
It sure isn't.
It was not. And when my uncle told me this, I said, what? I was like, that is not that far off. And even after they were emancipated, they still had to walk around with a pink slip, like how you for work. And if you lost your pink slip, somebody can essentially, they won't call it enslave you. They will make you a servant, but you had no choice.
Could you imagine?
and this is and so now these are the people that were, you can't forget these people. You can't forget these stories. You can't forget the system.
We're just not that
we
far
are not
removed.
that far removed from perfect
Exactly.
terminal. We are not that far. You may think we are because of where you went to school and the environment, but it really isn't. Like I enjoyed growing up in the islands and learning about our culture all the time. Like we learned about, in high school, we had to take U.S. history, Virgin Islands history, and Caribbean history. So I know the history of all the Caribbean islands, including the Central and parts of the South American countries that all border the Caribbean Sea. And we understood how the slave trade played a major role in the economy that is even still exists up to today.
That's dope. I'm actually jealous.
Okay.
So, no, word, because we didn't get that at all in school. We had the Black History Month, and then we had U.S. history. All of the presidents and inventors were amazing, but at the same time, they never said that they owned slaves. All of them did. How am I supposed to revere these white knights knowing that they owned my ancestors? Like, critical race theory would give me an opportunity to say whether or not if I want to enjoy this history, you know what I'm saying, or embrace this history, you know what I'm saying? So we don't want our kids to not have the same type of experiences that you're having. And to answer his question about do we think that it would change stuff, discussions like reparations wouldn't be a discussion. That would be an automatic if we actually took critical race theory and we put it in schools and we allowed kids to grow up understanding themselves, understanding their history. Let white teachers teach black kids, because white teachers don't know nothing about us or our history. So it will give them an opportunity to learn more about us. So when those young kids grow up and decide that they want to be politicians, like the opposition now, there's very few politicians. All of them are white and super, super old. And they were refused. They're not going to give up that privilege.
Why do you think? Why is there a Special Olympics? You know what I'm saying? Why are there systems set up to help what we might look or view as disadvantaged?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, curriculum is designed by different people. Okay, so you have multiple curriculums that are, submitted and approved or disapproved.
Right.
It is a curriculum. That's essentially what they're saying. We want to establish a way to view this. But I think to me, what my takeaway from it was when I started researching it and looking into it and like listening to all the different people talking about it on YouTube and things of that nature, most of the arguments were from people who were afraid of the backlash of knowing what actually happened and teaching the children what actually went down. And it's like, well, this is going to cause more racism. This is going to cause more rioting. This is going to cause more divide. This is going to make my children and their friends that they have, they're not going to be friends anymore. You don't know that. You're making that up. You don't know what's going to happen until you actually put it on the table. If you, like in my case with my children, unschooling, if you put the shit on the table and you say, okay, this is what it is, what do you see? What do you take away from this? What do you think that we can do to correct? Or what can we gain from this? What can we glean? How can we make this look differently? What does that look like to you? If we open it up for the children to have an opportunity to be able to see it in its raw form with all the receipts, I don't think it'll be as bad as they think it will be because they're afraid because white people haven't had a chance to heal from it either. Because don't get it twisted. They got fucked up through it too. Genetically, they were fucked up too. Because it was passed down to them. The superiority feeling was transferred to them from the womb.
Right.
So they're pretty fucked up as well.
Right. So you said a whole lot, and I definitely I'm on the same wavelength as you.
I'm not.
But I do not think they're more concerned with the divide. I think that they're more concerned with what people could do with that information.
And that's
exactly. What did we learn? Education is You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If the information
Right.
is powerful, the
They're
more
not
you know,
concerned because
the more you grow.
most all people, black, white, Mexican, they're all homogeneic.
I
You know
just
what
thought
mean?
it was
Like,
interesting that it was the biggest thing. They were resisting it the most. Like it's out of all the curriculums that people resist in the world, like this we ban
privilege.
this.
They do not want to
outta
give
here.
up their
Do
privilege.
you know? I mean,
Get
based
this
on my
outta here.
research, this really isn't something that's been taught in schools.
It's not.
It's
In
not
high
being
school.
taught. They're banning it.
It's secondary education. So maybe when you're in your master's program, doctoral program, that on that level, what are we doing to?
Do you think you think it should be taught later in life and not as a young
I'm
child?
saying, what are we doing to bring that to the level of
K through 12.
K to 12?
Right.
Because when I looked at it, the states you mentioned are the only states that talked about that.
Well, because some states are being kind of slick with it now because it's gotten so much heat because it's like, it's such a thing now. They're changing it to, ethnic studies.
So this is
equality studies.
This is what the governor of Oklahoma said. He said we need policies that brings us together, not rips us apart. Teachers cannot teach materials that causes discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other forms of physiological distress. That was one of the. I was looking up schools that actually was pushing critical race theory in on K to 12 level, and that was the only state that actually introduced that. What are we doing? I mean, even though I don't agree with it like that, but what are we doing to bring that to that level?
So it's the awareness is the first thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm enjoying the fact that people are even discussing it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so, like, the more that we bring the theory to the forefront, then maybe, cities, states, regions can actually talk about bringing those curriculums within there. But the backlash is already there. They don't even like that we're brainstorming it. You know what I'm saying? Like the conversation. They're like, look, before y'all even get to our table with paperwork or whatever, no. Because it's nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody. So they're just like, look, we ain't even going to try it. And I'm surprised Texas ain't in there already. But,
I mean, yeah, true. This has been around for years. It's crazy because it's been around for years and it's been on your level where it's at the highest of education. Right. And it's something that, some of us who didn't go after, maybe I decided not to go after my doctorate degree, instead of master's level or high school level, we don't get that knowledge that this is something that's been talked about, right, that needs to be out there, that we need to be educated on. And I was reading on it, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know anything. I mean, I still, my view on it, and I've stated my view on it. I'm not the biggest fan of critical race theory, but I still don't think that people who might benefit from this or who might push the agenda more, they don't know much about it. What are African Americans doing to push that out there? If you're keeping it at the academia level, where you have scholars who are talking about it on their level and teaching it in schools, in graduate schools and stuff like that, how does that translate down to?
Well, that's what they were trying to do, where they were introducing it into the schools. But when you have such major backlash like they're having right now, where people are saying, no, we don't want any of this.
They're calling it child abuse. They're saying it's child abuse.
I mean, you're exposing them to.
They're calling it child abuse.
Don't look at me like that.
Because I'm always like looking at your mannerisms.
No, because you are exposing.
But let me go to. Do you think it's right for white people to alter history textbooks? Give me a second. And instead of calling slaves, they call them indentured servants. Do you think it's right?
No. However, Common, I'm from
however common, shout out to Malak.
Liberia. And I would say this on this podcast. My parents had slaves until we came to the United States.
Ooh.
And that's a whole different.
You had servants?
We had servants.
Paid servants?
We
because slaves don't get paid.
We didn't pay them.
Oh, so they were. What did they get?
So my parents went back home to the rural part of the country, grabbed these, talked to their parents,
Oh my God.
and what you
Wait,
know.
wait,
Listen
wait.
to
Oh
me.
my God.
It's not
Listen to
something-
me.
It's not something
Yeah.
I'm proud of.
Why aren't you proud of it?
William,
I'm not proud of it.
did you have other black people enslaved in your home? Are you crazy?
Hold on, real quick. Let me go ahead and say this.
You're not that old.
Because this is gonna go on air. And I wanna
Yes.
make sure I
We going
clarify
viral
things.
with this one,
So
y'all.
My parents were able to go back to the rural side of the country, say, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna go ahead and grab your child from you,
Wow.
and have them work for us.
Okay.
Their job is to make sure my kids are clean, cook for my kids, all that
Okay.
good stuff. If we feel like it, we'll put them in school.
If we feel like it.
Yes.
Okay.
And I kid you not, that is a common practice in Liberia.
Wow.
And I still get calls and text messages from the girl who
Sounds
raised
like we got a
me,
new topic.
who raised me when I was in Africa.
We need to chop this
Wow.
up and make it a clip. So when
That-
we're hollering.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
We're gonna put you
Because
on
my-
front.
Can we
my-
pause?
No,
Can we
but-
pause
My
for a
parents
second?
are
I
going
need
to
to
see this. So I understand.
But that is, I understand that, and that is a good topic because that doesn't just happen in Liberia. That is
Okay.
a common practice in many parts
we
of the
need to
country,
we need to bring
in
this
many
shit up again.
parts of the world. You'd
Wow.
be surprised.
We're going to
I've actually looked into that.
Okay. So we needed that break, but go ahead. We good? Okay, so we needed our break, but
We don't know. They don't know that. Okay, so
Right.
what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so this was the question that I did have for you because I wasn't quite sure about your position before you came on the show. So I do have a good understanding of your position, and
she's
it's,
on your side.
well, I mean, I think that she.
On
I
the
think-
stranger side.
Okay. Well, maybe she is. She's more pro when it comes to CRT, and that's fine, right? But as a professional, as a professor who teaches people, now you teach adults, but like this, if you were teaching this in high school, how do you think this affects the teachers that are, teaching this to the children, but are uncomfortable with teaching it? Like, it's their job. How do you think it would affect you as a professional in this industry, teaching something that's, being fought against so much?
Yeah, so something basically that's like, because like they're making it like a political thing. too.
It is. It
Like
seems
something
very
that goes
political.
against
Yeah.
It is.
Your
It is.
political ideologies.
Right.
How would you think that they would?
Like, would you say, you know what, I'm not going to teach this because this is something that's being banned. This is something that, like, how, like, okay, for example, amongst the police brutality issues that, we deal with, it's like, well, we are, this is our organization. We have to kind of stick together. So as a teacher, as a profession,
I think it needs to be taught. Like I said, this is nothing new for me. This is a system I grew up in. So for me, I don't see what's the big deal. I think that it's important for you to know this information, to know what happened so that you can change it in the future, so that you can make corrections in the future. And I think it's important to have. And so even as a teacher, if you take the path that you feel uncomfortable, maybe it's because you truly don't know, because you truly don't understand, and because you now need to go back and do your due diligence and go back and study. Go back and learn and go back and review. And so that way, when you present it to your students, you're not presenting it with some disdain for the subject,
The filter.
but with actual, like, okay, so these are the good points. These are the things that we need you to know and why is this stuff important, and so that you can show what is the big picture. And I always reiterate once again, the big picture is not for everybody to hate each other, but the big picture is for us to come to better understanding.
You might have answered my question, but I'm gonna still throw it out there. How influential is this gonna be for us, Black people?
It would be because, so have you ever actually attended any event at a HBCU?
No, I did not go to a HBCU. I went to a PWI.
I understand, but you could still attend events, and I would recommend you
I
have.
stay away
You
from
live
them
in
because
this.
of the look down PWIs. So go ahead.
You are terrible
you
and you're a
live in
liar.
this
You wanted to go
area.
to Norfolk State's homecoming one year.
I might have, but go ahead.
you know you did.
We have two HBCUs. Well, in this immediate area, we have some more in the state itself, but we have two in this immediate area. We have Norfolk State University and Hampton University.
Yes.
And one thing that they pride themselves on is making sure that whoever comes into our universities, no matter what race you are, no matter what color you are, that you understand the importance and the struggle that they had to go through to even create these universities and bring people of color up to a specific standard in life in order to even be able to compete.
Thank you.
With what was, and so this is the premise that all HBCUs are formed on. And so when you go to these universities, this is what you learn regardless. And it's not a class you take. It's an environment, your whole setting,
I love
everything.
it.
I needed to hear that.
Well, just imagine not having to wait until you go to college.
Once again,
to
you
do
don't
this.
have to sit on him.
Sure.
You're not going to go to HBCU and ask a person, do you hate white people? They'll be like, it's not that we hate any
I just
white
love
people.
black people.
We now know where we fall and what we have to do to get to where we need to be to bring other
Right.
people up with us. But we have the knowledge to be able to do so. If you take that knowledge away, then they won't know. They won't know what they had to do to get there.
Okay.
I feel
appreciate. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I just feel like the biggest argument that people have is the historical factors, which is just the evidence that supports the need for it. That's it. It's like everyone is so big on like, let's look at what happened to us. Let's look at what happened to us. Yes, that's the evidence to support the need to dissect and to present and to make to bring awareness. Like it's obvious even in today's times that there is something else that we need to say, why are we still dealing with such major racist issues? Like, why do we still have such deep issues? And now it's even like, because of social media, like you think like, oh, damn, this shit is really serious. But like, this shit's been going on. It's been way worse. It's been going on. Just now we have more clarity. We see it more. It's easier for us to put it out there because we couldn't do it before. We were afraid or we were censored. So I think it's an opportunity for us to be able to see it more clearly. Right. That's the problem. And people don't want to. They want their shit to have like MSG, you know what I'm saying? They want it to taste good, you know what I'm saying? And it's rotten. This shit is rotten. It's fucked up, and we need to figure out a way to replant, reseed, and regrow the way we think and see this.
Stop the system.
And stop trying to play like it ain't about color and race. And that's the problem. They're like, it's about race. You're teaching. So you have these interracial couples, and they're saying, well, wait a minute. So when my children come home, are they going to see my husband as the oppressor and I'm the oppressed? No.
Yes.
Well, no.
Yes.
That's not what we're teaching. We're teaching the principles of race consciousness. I'm not a critical race theorist. I'm just saying, from me stepping outside of the box and looking at it from the perspective of someone who's saying like, all you're trying to do is just bring awareness to what the fuck is we're actually dealing with. This is what we're looking at. And you're just bringing awareness to it. And you're saying, okay, now we see it. This is what we propose could potentially work in our favor to help settle the books, because the books are unbalanced. They've been unbalanced for years.
Well, why I might not agree the most with critical race theory. Let me just say what I learned from this whole topic. So I know a lot of our viewers, I'm guessing that a lot of our viewers didn't know much about it because I didn't. It started off. This has been something that's been going on since the 60s and 70s, but it came around last year when they had a conservative that it has been more so on your field, academia side, where it was being taught on the PhD level, doctoral degree level, and last year we had a conservative that went on Carson Tucker show, and he talked about how this was going to be polluting the country and it was going to be segregating people and making white folks seem more like the oppressor and blacks as the oppressed. And then Trump went ahead about, he actually passed laws that prevented any type of race training, anything that was race conscious training on the federal level. So because of that, that was passed in September of last year before he turned over power. Because of that, that moved down to to the state level. So you had governors passing laws that said, I read that earlier, the governor of Oklahoma, that said that if it made a student uncomfortable, anxious, anguish, it couldn't be taught in high school, in grade school. When Biden came into office, he actually reversed all of that. So he pushed towards more getting these things to be taught in schools. And he's been in office a couple of months, over 100 days or so like that. But I see that changing in the future. And why I'm not the most supporter of that, because I don't think I still see things from the viewpoint of that might create more segregation for us. There are people who are on the side of who are okay with what Malcolm X wanted, being segregated and keeping us apart from those people and us getting the white folks, and that might have been more beneficial for us. I'm okay with that being pushed forward now, critical race theory being pushed forward. I'm okay with us learning what history is and not being the whitewash history that we're being taught in high school and in college. I don't know if I was taught that in high school, it could have been different for me. But I went through college and went through meeting people outside of college, and our host here, primary host, who actually brought me along and was like, listen, you might see me if I'm dressed in sweatpants and going to a board meeting, and you look down on me because I'm dressed this way. You might think that that's too ghetto or too that's out there, but that's who that represents me, and you're looking down on that side of me, and I appreciate you pushing your agenda.
Agenda. It wasn't just me. It's a cultural thing too. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have fashion. You know what I'm saying? And at the time when you were giving me a lot of shit about being fashionable, I was telling you, like, yo, this is culture. You know what I'm saying? And like, when I see you, I see myself. And I don't want you to look down on me because you're kind of looking down on yourself. You know what I mean?
Because I was taught to think that what you was presenting might not be acceptable to, if I went to a board meeting.
White America.
Yes. So what can white folks do? I know how you feel about it, Zyah.
Okay.
I know how you feel about it.
You know how I feel?
Because you built the house and you said they should leave us alone. So I know how you feel about it. How
can I answer?
What can white folks do
to
make it okay?
I have a really unique employment situation.
Yes, you do.
Where I created a business and I have a gym, and it's super black, like super black. I play all types of black music. I have black images all over. I have HBCU flags all over, and I didn't even attend at HBCU. Perspective matters. Like, perspective experiences matter. I train white folks, and white folks get a rare opportunity to come to the cookout. I'm not big on having white people come to my cookouts, but I have a job. And so I have a lot of white folks who don't have any experience with black people. You guys know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Well off, been around white folks their whole life, have no experience with, and like, their literal first prolonged exposure to black folks is being in my space. And so it's my duty almost to be like, look, this is what black is.
I'm going to educate you.
When they have questions, I give them raw, unfiltered. I tell them,
uncomfortable
here's my
sometimes.
problem with white folks, and it's just how things are. And they follow me on social media, and you guys know on my social media, I am literally Malcolm X Jr. I got all kinds of smoke for white folks because I am like you. I'm always frustrated, you know what I'm saying? And the great James Baldwin says, when you start to open your eyes and you become consciousness of all of the things that's coming around you, you're in a constant state of rage. But I'm not trying to hurt nobody, but I am frustrated all the time because we're dealing with things like the opposition to critical race theory, which makes no sense. People just want to know the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like I said, the biggest issue I have with people opposing it is that they're like, why are we making race such a big issue? This gets away from Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, where race is not considered. Mm-hmm. The reality is that that's what it is. Your race. You're looked at, the first thing that people see if you're not actually blind is the color of your skin tone and the implications that have been applied to you based on your skin tone. So why not give children an opportunity to see that this is how they're viewed and give them an opportunity to learn how to navigate those systems and possibly to create better systems to be able to navigate better.
And learn not to have these awkward conversations.
Right.
That's like how he said he had
nothing wrong with being uncomfortable.
Adult. Mm-hmm. I had one of those too where I was in a lab and my lab mates and I, we were really getting to know each other. We met each other in passing when I was in undergrad and she was doing her master's. But when she came back to do her PhD, we were working in the same lab. And we really became very good friends. And so we just started asking the very awkward questions.
Bro.
There's a lot of beauty in the differences that we have.
And she would always, she was like, please don't take this racist. I'm not trying to, she's like, I just really have, I'm not taking it racist. Ask your question. I'm willing to ask. And it was just it was a great relationship that we had and a friendship that we had because we were able to break down those barriers. I was able to ask her some questions I just really didn't know about white people. And she was able to ask me questions that she never knew about black people. And so she got a totally different insight. When she met my son and saw how my son interacted with her kids, she was like, "Can I keep your child?"
Can you imagine?
You said no.
Can you imagine how this would affect children if they were given an opportunity to sit together and actually be like, "Okay, this is what your people experience." Wow, like
nip it in the bud early,
right early, so that you don't get to the point of being in college and you've been like sort of fed this unconscious and sometimes even conscious like. I'm better.
Yes.
I show up on time.
Yes.
My hair is, you know what I'm saying? I'm giving better treatment when I go into stores. Like it's ingrained, it's conscious and it's unconscious. But if a child, like a sponge, if a child is given an opportunity to sit amongst the uncomfortableness, the children are smart enough to realize like, okay, this isn't right.
Right.
Okay.
This is wrong.
And they're able to say like, they did that? I don't ever want to do that.
We never want something like that to happen again.
Exactly. And so that they can grow up with this is not so hard grained into them. Because some children, there was a movie, I think it's called Rosewood, but I'm not sure. But it was a movie talking about similar to what happened in Tulsa, but it happened in Florida, where a white woman accused one of the black men in the town of raping her, where she was in fact just having sex with another white
man.
Another white man cheating up on her. What is it?
It was Rosewood.
Okay, thank you. And then, go through the whole movie. A whole lot of the black people in the town were killed, and the rest of them had to leave. And I think they were, of all the places for reparations, they were the only one that was recently within the past, I think, 15 to 20 years that were awarded it by the Supreme Court. Don't know if they got their money, but
right.
They actually, descendants of those actually went to court to get that. But the one part that stuck with me the most in that whole movie is when the little white boy was looking into the mass grave at the babies that were killed. And his father was like, don't think of them as human. And his son looked at him like,
What?
He was like,
cognitive dissonance.
I don't ever want to be like you. And he just...
In order to go to sleep as a good Christian at night, you have to think of these people as 3/5. You have to think of these people as inhuman. You have to think of it, because otherwise you'd be fucked up. You can't sleep at night knowing that you're doing experiments, you're raping, you're taking these people and separating their families. Like, you have to have something that helps you sleep at night. And so you have to create scenarios that say... They're not.
Can I say this? So, I hate to play devil advocates, but most white folks are not looking. You just listed a few things just now. You said raping. What else did you say? You listed a couple of things.
Beating, separating families, killing, experimenting.
White folks that I know, that we know, probably are not looking at things that way. And I that's why I appreciate this podcast, and I hope to listen to it and know that these things are still happening. I want to say this though, as a white person, what can I do? And I'm not referring to myself.
I was like, oh, pause, rewind.
Because as a white person, listen to this podcast, what can I do to drive the conversation, to push for some type of change? I would say, I would list what I think is okay. I think that we have to understand that racism
is real.
It's real. It's
and still very alive.
It's embedded into our culture and into our institution. And I listed earlier, and I said that when it comes to the economy, like I think I've read somewhere online that a black family, an average black family, makes about 13 cents less than what they make 13 cents, and then a white family makes about $1 of that, an average black family. And then that was when it came to economy. And I said that, let's say the culture, blacks are on reality shows or TV and actresses and actors, and they're not even picked for roles that whites are picked for. So you have to sit back and see those differences and stuff like that. So as a white person, it's not like this is not inherent. So this is not something that's ingrained into your bloodstream, but you have to make sure you're not denying that it exists. And when you say that, oh, I don't see color and I see it's color blindness, that's where the problem is. You have to figure it out. Oh shit, listen. I'm treated differently.
You're making the point.
I know what my
you're making the point.
You're a critical race
You're actually
theorist.
making the point,
Right.
which
Yes,
is why you start with the kids.
Yes. So if you look at things and say, listen, I see that I'm given this privilege, and I know the first episode we talk about when the caller who the girl who called in, and then we was I talked to you guys days later. I said, was she saying that she was proud to be white because of the privileges that was given to her? You have to understand that there are privileges given to you. When you deny those privileges that are given to you, then we can't move anywhere forward from that, because you don't see what the issue is. You have those privileges. It becomes an issue because what you think benefits you is oppressing us. Those things that are given to you are things that are pulled away from us, taken away from us, and it's institutionalized, and we have to deal with that. So you have to understand first that these are
and
things
what's
that
the first institution
I
that you
hate
go
you're
to as a
smiling over there
child?
because you
What's
think
the first institution that you enter into as a child? If you're not homeschooled, what's the first institution? School.
school? Yeah.
So if your first set of institutionalization is school.
I see where you guys come from. My only fear is that if when we push these things too hard, it might still create that separation where the white kids are going to grow up and say, I still feel above black folks.
Well, it's how it's presented.
Listen. So this goes back to the pilot episode. I know that you care about people in general, but what I'm asking you to do, from me to you, on this set, is to care about yourself just a little bit more. Because what's happening is, like, you have this internal struggle where you don't want to upset people, but those same people that you don't want to upset are literally oppressing you. Your words. Those are your words.
Yes.
So why, I don't understand, why is it so tough
struggle?
for you to say, you know what, because these people time after time, generation after generation, have shown me that they don't care about me. Like, where's the opposition?
I don't want to look at it as a solution, find the problem. I want to be able to say that why this situation exists racism exists, let me see if I can explain this better. I want to be able to not use or fall back on racism as a reason for not. What are you thinking?
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
He wanted
Thank
to say
you.
it so bad.
I appreciate you. I appreciate that.
Although I had a ball and chain, and you said go.
Okay.
You know, like a race, go.
Right.
And I'm chained, and I can't move yet.
And I'm still.
And
I'm
you've
a better
lapped
athlete.
me 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, let the chains go. Let her give her a chance now. Now, do your best. The fuck?
Mm-hmm.
You just went around. You went around like 7 or 8 or 9 times. I'm not gonna fucking catch up unless we stop the race, start the fuck over.
Or you can stop and let me run a little bit.
Exactly.
and catch up.
Sit your ass down. Let me get my
Right.
8 laps. Then we go.
Okay. Dr. David. Because I was about that would have led to a whole much more. No, you don't. I don't want you. That analogy you just used, like, okay, stop yourself. Let me go ahead. I don't see it as that.
Right. Because you think because now you free.
Because
You
we
good.
are. Yeah, and when I
Do you realize even after we were free, we still weren't fucking free?
I mean, and there are
For years.
and that explains what critical race theory is. There, even though those laws were put in place after the civil rights movements, those laws were not made. They were put in place to still keep whites superior and blacks inferior. I understand what you were saying. So even though we're free, we still aren't free. However, Common, I don't want us to use that as a way.
You
to keep us.
don't have an excuse. You have no excuse. You're free now. What's the fucking problem? You don't have an excuse anymore. You're okay.
Do you know
You
what
got
I
it.
think? Do you know what I think?
You
about-
don't need any mental health help.
And I
you
know,
don't need any extra support.
Dr. David, I know we got to wrap up, but I still have to say this. When I think about things like that, I look back at, let's say, Barack Obama. That's an African American president. He got to where he needs to be. You're not.
You think that was?
You know what? Let me. Dr. David, go ahead and give your. I want you to give
okay.
your.
Let's let our guests talk. Yes.
Let's like it stuff because this could go on forever.
Absolutely, boo.
We are very different when it comes to this. Go ahead.
I understand what you were trying to say. You're trying to say do not let
Your disadvantages.
and race stop you from achieving in life, but you have to understand that those are the obstacles. They are already automatically there. You talk about Barack Obama, but if you literally speak to this man, he will tell you all the obstacles that was put in his place that he had to
overcame.
but he was able to. Not some. There are many
He also
different
had a
things
white
that happen
mama.
that some people just cannot get over the obstacle because the obstacle is so huge, and you have to remember that. You have to remember everybody's situation is different, but the obstacles are there and they are grandiose. They are very huge obstacles. I even went through obstacles, and I have a PhD. I didn't just grace right through. No, I went through a ton of obstacles myself. And some of them were blatant, like in my face, like, oh, you're black and you don't deserve to be here. Why are you here?
Bottom line
Okay.
Let me
is that you know goodness well, William, that you have been probably taught, and you probably have heard this. We got to work, twice as hard
Yes, we do.
to be able to. Twice as hard.
And
why
that's
we
why
not work
African
twice as hard?
families
Let
are
me
the way
say
that
it.
they
That's
are.
equal.
Let me say this.
That's equal,
real
right?
quick.
Know this.
Let me say this real quick. And I hope
Twice
this
as
makes
hard.
it into the final cut. This is what I gather from this whole topic. Critical race theory is we got to take race serious. It is a pervasive social phenomenon that has been integrated into our race, integrated to be race to the race of the United States. Racism is deeply embedded into our society, reflected in our institution. For example, driving while black, the war on drugs. Study shows that bias is a factor in every factor of the criminal justice system. When it comes to the economy, I just talked about it. Average black family has 13 cents of wealth to every dollar that white family has. That's very serious. When it comes to culture, you have shows that for years, do not show black representations, and they show white representations. It is not to say that racism is inherent in any one person as a function of their skin color or racial category. Let's be honest, if we grew up in a society in which racial ideas are around us, it is almost impossible for us to not absorb some form of that racism. So for us to have, you have people you work with who are white, and it's difficult to have conversation with them because I know where they're from. I will hope that they will want to have this conversation because their family, their parents raised them to be, Zyah.
Mm-hmm.
Raise her kids to be a certain way, to be race conscious, understand certain things. And I'm sure those people who you work with, parents raise them to be that type of way. Coming to your gym, working out, and pretending that those things don't exist becomes the problem. So I want this to be a conversation that we can have with our friends who are of different race to understand that for us to move forward.
But do you think it should be taught in schools?
William.
I just say yes or no, boo. We still love you. Just do you think it should be taught in schools?
No.
Okay. He doesn't think it should be taught in schools.
I do not. That comes down to
and that's cool.
Okay. Do you think it should be taught in school? We're going back around it. This is the final end.
Yes.
Do you think so? You
But I want to say that I would like to see the curriculum. I would like to see what exactly is being taught and how it's being taught, because that makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
How the information is presented.
Absolutely.
And who's coming up with the curriculum?
Absolutely.
So I think it's.
Do I think it should be taught in schools? I think it should be taught in schools. Yes.
And stipulations?
Excuse me?
Anything you want to look for?
I mean, I think there's always exceptions and stipulations and examinations. I mean, I think everything should be looked at critically. I unschooled because I wanted my children to have a process. I wanted them to have the ability to think critically about everything, period.
Right. And I mean, just to be on topic, Pharrell is actually creating a private school just for black people. And he said,
I heard about that.
With the governor on there, like, black kids are not getting the proper education. What is he saying about the public schools then?
Oh, it's horrible.
Right. What is he saying? Like on set, what is he saying? He's saying literally that black kids are not getting the education. In a private school for black kids. So we're going to wrap this thing up. Yeah, we're going to wrap this thing up.
This has been a good
breaker
show.
bill. Do you have a breaker bill?
I do have a breaker bill, and I want this one breaker bill to follow all the way around.
Okay.
Okay.
Homeschooling, break or build.
You did that last week.
No, we didn't.
No, we did.
Unschooling. Oh.
We did
Homeschooling.
Naomi. That's what we did last week.
Break or build.
Unschooling is a form of homeschooling, so build.
Break or build.
Build.
Break. Kids need to be. They need to interact with other kids.
And so unschooling doesn't allow them to do that? Okay, let's talk about it.
So you have 3
Hell
kids
yes.
at home. No.
All right, so I'm going to say that break as well.
Thank you.
And it's the number one thing that I was thinking about, the socialization.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Right, I want kids to
That
be
is the
around.
stupidest and the I'm sorry. It is the least concern
She did.
of homeschoolers.
No.
Do you know how
both of them
socialized my kids were? Man, please.
I've met your son since you want to be cute.
Derron, I want to.
He's weird.
I want to hear what you.
Just like your ass.
And he's weird.
First of all,
He's
wait.
weird.
First of all,
He's weird. He's super weird.
who's weird?
The oldest son.
Oh,
Zakai, I love you to death, but you're weird,
I want to
bro.
hear what you think
And you
about
know what?
homeschooling, though.
weird is good.
I want to hear what you think about homeschooling because we both agree on something for the first time.
Okay, but that's the breaker bill.
Both of
That's
you
the breaker
guys.
bill. We're not talking about it. That's not the topic. That's not the topic.
terrible.
That's not the topic. That's not the topic.
Give us-
It's the breaker bill.
Give us
Wrap
1
it up.
second. Give us 1 second.
No, we wrapping this shit up.
We gonna wrap
We
it
wrapping
up.
this shit up.
We good.
No, make sure you like, subscribe,
Look,
and share. 'cause
like,
this was
thank you.
subscribe,
intense.
share. We appreciate
Dr.
you
David,
coming
thank
out
you.
and
Oh,
coming
yes,
out. We gonna
absolutely.
cut that shit, whatever.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
because